The sun hung low over Lagos, casting a golden hue on the busy streets. Emeka Adichie leaned back in his leather seat, the faint hum of his car's air conditioning a soothing contrast to the chaos outside. He was a man who had it all: wealth, status, and the admiration of many. But lately, something felt missing. As he pulled into a modest school compound to attend a charity event his company was sponsoring, he had no idea his life was about to change. The schoolyard was alive with the chatter of children and the vibrant energy of teachers trying to keep order. Among them was Adaora, a petite woman with a quiet grace that stood out amidst the clamor. Emeka's eyes caught hers as she guided a group of children toward the playground. She smiled politely, unaware of the impression she had just left. Emeka, intrigued, found himself watching her every move. After the event, he approached her. "You're doing great work here," he said, offering his hand. Adaora hesitated briefly before shaking it. "Thank you, sir. The children are what matter." Her tone was warm yet distant. "I'm Emeka Adichie," he added, almost expecting her to recognize his name. "I know," she replied, a faint smile playing on her lips. "But that doesn't make you any different from the rest of us, does it?" Her words caught him off guard. Most people fawned over his wealth and status, but Adaora's sincerity disarmed him. Intrigued, he decided to pursue her, captivated by her humility and strength. Over the following weeks, Emeka visited the school more often, finding excuses to see her. Adaora, cautious at first, began to let her guard down. But beneath her calm exterior lay a secret, a burden she carried quietly. As their connection deepened, Emeka found himself drawn into a world far removed from his own, unaware of the storm that awaited them both. Emeka couldn't shake the excitement he felt each time he saw Adaora. She was unlike anyone he had ever met, grounded, compassionate, and utterly uninterested in his wealth. For the first time, he found himself questioning the superficial relationships in his life. He decided to make his intentions clear. One sunny afternoon, as Adaora packed away books in the school's modest library, Emeka walked in, holding 2 cups of steaming coffee. "You've been working too hard," he said, setting one cup in front of her. She looked up, startled but amused. "And you've been showing up too often. Don't you have a business empire to run?" Emeka laughed. "I do, but I can delegate." "I can't delegate this." Adaora raised an eyebrow. "This?" "Getting to know you," he said, his voice sincere. She paused, unsure how to respond. She had grown to enjoy his company, but a voice in her head warned her not to let things go too far. She was guarding a secret, one that could ruin everything. Still, Emeka's persistence wore her down. Over the next few weeks, they began spending more time together. He took her on simple dates, avoiding the luxury she suspected he was used to. A walk along the beach, dinner at a quiet restaurant, even sitting in the schoolyard and chatting about their childhoods. But Adaora's secret loomed large. Late at night, when the world was silent, she would think about Emeka's kindness and feel a pang of guilt. He didn't know she was caring for his estranged brother, Obinna, who had been disowned by their family years ago. Obinna had stumbled into her life sick and penniless, and she had taken him in without knowing his true identity. One evening, as Emeka dropped her off at her modest apartment, he noticed her hesitation. "Adaora, is something wrong?" She shook her head quickly. "No, I'm fine, just tired." But as he drove away, she stood at her door, staring into the night, knowing her secret couldn't stay hidden much longer. Days passed, and Emeka's feelings for Adaora only deepened. His mother's objections grew louder, her disdain for Adaora more pronounced. She made it clear that no matter how hard he tried to convince her, a schoolteacher was not the right match for the heir to their family's fortune. One evening, Emeka decided to confront his mother. "Why can't you accept her, Mama? Adaora is nothing like the others. She doesn't care about money." His mother, seated on her plush velvet couch, raised an eyebrow. "And that's what makes her dangerous. She's clever enough to pretend, but her true intentions will show when the time comes. You'll see, Emeka." But Emeka refused to be swayed. In his heart, he knew Adaora wasn't like the women his mother approved of, women who only sought the comfort of his wealth. He was in love with Adaora, not her status. Meanwhile, Adaora continued to carry the weight of her secret, finding herself growing more distant from Emeka. Despite the love they shared, she knew that the moment the truth came out, everything would change. She couldn't bear to lose him, but the risk of exposing her secret was too great. One evening, while she sat in the living room of her small apartment, Emeka showed up unannounced. He had a concerned look on his face. "Adaora, you've been avoiding me. What's going on?" She froze. "Nothing, Emeka. I need some space." Emeka stepped closer, his voice firm. "I don't believe that. Something's wrong." A silence filled the room. Adaora wanted to confess everything, to explain why she had been so distant, but the words caught in her throat. She was scared. Scared that Emeka would hate her for keeping his brother's illness a secret. Scared that he would leave her, thinking she had betrayed him. Finally, she spoke. "There's something I haven't told you." Emeka's heart raced. "What is it, Adaora?" But before she could speak, the phone rang. It was Obinna. Adaora stared at the phone, her hand trembling as she reached for it. Emeka's sharp eyes caught the hesitation. He stepped closer, sensing the tension in the air. "Adaora, who is it?" he asked softly. I need to take this," she whispered, her voice barely audible. She stepped into the next room, shutting the door behind her. Emeka, unable to shake the feeling that something was amiss, paced the living room. He could hear her voice on the phone, but the words were muffled. His mind raced. Who was she talking to? When Adaora finally returned, her face was pale, and her eyes were red, as though she had been crying. Emeka's heart sank. "Adaora, what's going on?" She avoided his gaze, and for a long moment, the room felt suffocating. "It's Obinna," she said softly. "He's not well, Emeka. He's terminal." The words hit Emeka like a punch to the gut. Obinna, the estranged brother he hadn't seen in years, was sick. His thoughts swirled. He had no idea, but Adaora was the one who had been taking care of him. She had been secretly looking after Emeka's brother, the very man who had turned his back on their family and left to live in isolation. "Why didn't you tell me?" Emeka asked, his voice trembling with hurt. "Why hide it from me, Adaora?" Tears welled up in her eyes as she struggled to explain. "I didn't want to burden you, Emeka. I didn't want you to feel obligated, but I've been trying to give him a peaceful life. I couldn't let him die alone." Emeka's mind raced with a mixture of anger and confusion. "So, all this time, you've been hiding this from me?" "Yes, because I love you, Emeka, and I couldn't let you turn your back on me for this." Emeka sat down heavily, his mind struggling to reconcile the truth with his feelings for her. She had been caring for his brother in secret, a sacrifice so deep it shook him to his core. But the betrayal he felt was hard to dismiss. "I don't know what to say, Adaora," he muttered, his voice barely a whisper. "I never wanted to hurt you," she replied, her voice broken. "But I knew if you found out, you'd leave." Emeka stood up abruptly, the weight of the truth pressing on him. He had to make a choice, and he knew it wouldn't be easy. Emeka couldn't sleep that night. His mind replayed every moment with Adaora, the laughter, the tenderness, the way she made him feel alive. Yet, his heart weighed heavy with the betrayal he felt. How could she have kept such a significant truth from him? How could he have been so blind to her sacrifice? As dawn broke, Emeka made up his mind. He had to see Obinna. He had to face the man who had been a shadow in his life for so long. Perhaps, in facing him, he could understand the depth of Adaora's loyalty, and in turn, find a way back to her. When Emeka arrived at Obinna's modest home, he was met with a sickly silence. The air was thick with the smell of old medicine, and the dim light from a single bulb barely illuminated the room. Obinna lay on a worn-out bed, looking fragile, his face gaunt and pale. Obinna's eyes flickered open as Emeka entered, and for a moment, there was nothing but the awkwardness of two brothers who hadn't spoken in years. "Emeka," Obinna croaked, his voice weak. "You're here?" Emeka nodded, his throat tight. "I should have been here long ago," he said, his voice strained. "I didn't know." Obinna smiled faintly. "You didn't need to know, Adaora. She's the one who kept me going." Emeka looked at his brother, the weight of his past mistakes sinking in. "I've been so selfish, Obinna. I pushed you away, and I pushed her away too." Obinna's smile faded as he coughed. "It's never too late, Emeka. Don't let pride ruin what you have." The words hit Emeka like a thunderclap. He had lost Adaora once, and he couldn't afford to lose her again. He rushed back to her apartment, his heart pounding. Adaora opened the door, her face tear-streaked, but she didn't say a word. Emeka took her hands in his voice breaking. "I was wrong, Adaora. I see it now. I see the love, the sacrifice. Please, don't let me lose you." Adaora's eyes searched his face for a moment, then softened. "I've already moved on, Emeka," she whispered. "But I haven't," he replied, his voice full of desperation. "I never will." As Adaora looked at him, her expression softened. She took a deep breath, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, they kissed. The story ends with the realization that love, though tested by pride, fear, and sacrifice, always finds a way to heal. The past might remain a shadow, but it no longer dictated their future.